It is an absolute pleasure to have these stalwarts amongst us. And I must say, personally, we've known Ms. Rani Mukherjee for all the work that she's done. I think she was fabulous in Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway. It's really, really amazing. Or I've graduated from, my acting skills come from Mr. Anupam Kher. And one thing that he mentioned when I had joined him was that if you want to look at good performances and good acting, you must look at a performance of an actor who emotes every single emotion through their eyes. And he specifically gave me an example, and that was Ms. Rani Mukherjee. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for Ms. Rani Mukherjee once again.
Before we start, we'd like to play a video, please.
Yes, before we start, can we have the AV, please? Round of applause for Rani Mukherjee, ladies and gentlemen. And over to you, sir. Rajeev, sir, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, thank you. If everyone will settle down, we'll start. Rani, you've had this incredible career. You've been working for I think this year you complete 27 years in the movies.
Yes.
I counted, as a leading lady, you've done roughly 45 films. I'm not counting the guest appearances, the friendly appearances. You won 8 Filmfare Awards. You've had a full career. And it doesn't look like you're in any mood to slow down, as you shouldn't. Your last film, Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway, was a film that broke that myth that female-centric films won't work at the box office in a post-pandemic world. Those films were not working. Those content-driven films were not making a mark theatrically. They were all mostly moving to streaming. And here was a film that came and did significant business at a time when those kind of films were not working. They were the tentpole action films that were only working at that time. If you could attribute, Rani, your success and the longevity of your career to one quality, what would that be?
I think that one quality would be having faith. You know, to have faith in the audiences, to have faith in yourself. The fact that we have to constantly work hard on ourselves to improve ourselves with each growing film or with each growing day. I think that's been my motto, that whatever film I have done, I need to better that in my next film. And to have faith in the audiences that they will give you an answer, whether good, bad, ugly, great. They are the real critics, you know, so to say. And for them to tell us what they're liking, what they're not. And the audiences are the ones who actually tell us what the trend of the mood of the public is like.
Right.
You know, what are they kind of accepting? What are they talking about? What are they wanting to spend their hard-earned money on which content? You know? And they are the ones who tell us and decide our longevity.
Right. You know, it's very interesting what you said. You said faith, and that brings me to ask you, when, it's no secret that when Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway was ready to be sort of shown to the world, the producers had offers from some of the big streaming platforms to go straight to digital, to go straight to streaming. That was the safe option at the time. Theatrically, those films were not working at the box office, but you all stuck your necks out. You all had the faith, and you all were rewarded in the end. I want to ask you, what sort of, where did that faith come from?
So
Because
interestingly,
it's not just about having faith that we made a good film. It's also about having the faith that people will come.
yeah. So interestingly, when Mrs. Chatterjee was offered to me, it was offered to me in the pandemic time. But for some reason, I was very sure that when the film releases, it has to be a theatrical, you know, and that was put in my contract.
Right.
So also the makers were in a position, a little strange position, because when you put that on a contract, then they're bound to do what is meant in the contract. But I, at one point when there was so much discussion happening, at one point I did tell my makers that though you have this in the contract, I would not
Enforce it, yeah.
enforce it or stop you from wanting to do a digital platform, because as a producer, I want to be with you and I want to support my producers in the sense that if you feel that that would be a better business decision for you, then might as well. Because a lot of films that started pre-pandemic, in the pandemic time, they just decided to release it on OTT.
Yeah.
But this was a film offered to me in pandemic. I had put this contractual clause that I need this to be a theatrical because I believe in the story. I believe that this film should reach out to as many people. Not that if it would stream on OTT, it wouldn't reach to a lot of people. But I think when a film releases theatrically, it has a lot more, I would say, excitement in terms of there is more a commitment from an audience that they decide to make a plan to go to watch the film as opposed to being at home and getting the content
it's appointment
easily
viewing,
at home.
yeah.
It's like appointment viewing.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that is a industry that I've grown up in. I've started my career in that industry, and I thought that my film should have a theatrical release. But I still gave that option. But I think somewhere the producers also garnered that faith during when they saw my passion, saw the film, and they said that, no, Rani, we want to go with your passion, we want to go with your confidence, and we will be. And I feel that is applaud worthy, because even after me telling them that they have the right to veto my contractual clause, they still said that we will respect the decision, and we will have, because we have faith in the film, we will go for it theatrically. Especially Z producers, like they were distributing the film, they were headlining it, Z and MA. They both were hand in hand, and I can only be very eternally grateful for them that they took this step, and I can have to thank the audience that they came in big numbers to see my film. So I'm grateful for both the involvement of my producers and my audience. So thank you, audience.
Yeah. But Rani, what do you think of streaming as as a medium today? It's a very vibrant medium. Many of your peers, many of your colleagues, many of your juniors are working in both long form series and in films that are made straight for streaming. Is that something that interests you?
Of course, I think any medium that that has great content would always interest me, because when I select a film, I'm always looking for that one story that I want people to know. Or it's a story that has not been given that much traction when it came, a real life story, or a story of an inspirational woman, because I've always tried to portray strong women characters, bring the strong Indian woman on a global platform and tell people that here we are, this is what Indian women are, you know. And through my career, I've done that for the last 27 years. So I'm always looking for that story or that subject or that character that drives me, you know, and something that I can take inspiration from. Because I feel that if I take inspiration from a character, and if a character is inspiring me for me to play the part, I'm sure it'll make a mark on a lot of individuals' minds as well.
Right.
Because there are a lot of youngsters who look for this kind of inspiration. When I was at an age where I was growing up, I was looking for such inspirations through real life people, through real heroes, through cinema, through characters, through books. You know, so these are things that we look for, you know, probably conditioning ourselves as teenagers, taking inspiration and making our journey feel special along the way, you know. So we need these characters, we need these strong women characters who we can connect with. And also stories that are hidden, you know, if we can spark a conversation through these films, or if we can tell people that this is what is going on and give it importance, I think it makes a huge difference.
So you're saying if the right story came along, if the right material came along, you're open to doing like a long format series?
I think I'll be open to do anything that excites me as a person and as an actor. I've never followed any norm.
Yeah.
I've never, I don't know, it has been instinctive in my way that I don't like to follow a kind of pattern that I'm supposed to be following, but I like to follow my heart, and whatever my heart leads me to is something that I've always done. You know, when people say that, is there a secret to how you select your films, or is there something that drives you? I think it's just my emotional core. something that I kind of relate with, because if I have to spend time with a
Yeah.
particular subject for 100 days of my life, I have to be very passionate about it.
Right.
you
And the
know?
first place is instinct. The first thing is instinct.
Yes. Instinct, because if I hear a story or if I hear a character that I instinctively feel connected to, and that character is speaking something important
Yeah.
or saying something important that is talking for women,
Yeah.
I think that really excites me.
Rani, after all these years, has your process of picking films changed?
Yes, of course, because when I was in my 20s or in my teenage years, um, there were different reasons I did films.
Yeah.
It was not the same process that
Yeah.
it's now, where you're reading scripts and you're taking decisions. There were times when the director producer would just tell us just one line thread story.
Right.
And we were accepting roles just on those bases.
Yeah.
There was no story, there were no dialogues that were given to us
Yeah.
to prepare beforehand. It was just a simple thread कि story जी ये है कि ऐसा ऐसा होता है और ऐसा ऐसा होगा और फिर end में ऐसा ऐसा हो जाता है. So it was just a beginning, mid and end.
Right.
And there wasn't like a conscious effort to even convince us.
Correct. Bound script, so there was no
No,
concept.
because it was like, अच्छा आप नहीं करेंगे तो कोई और कर लेगा. So we've also been through the time where we were like, I was just accepting films that my parents were like, okay Rani, today you have to go to Film City. अच्छा कल आपका फिल्मिस्तान में है और आज आपको यहाँ पे शूटिंग करनी है और वहाँ से आपको उधर जाना है. So I've also been through an age where I don't know better.
Yeah.
I think wisdom comes with age.
Yeah.
So I think when I started to receive fan mails, because at that time social media wasn't there, we wouldn't know instantly. We were not told what people were liking or people were not liking. There were these letters that used to come, and through my letters I started to realize what my audience wants out of me, what they like about my work, which film they liked, which film they didn't like. It was more in my letters that I read. And then I realized that, oh my God, something that I'm taking as as a means to an end for me. Like I'm trying to earn probably the jam and butter for my family. But what people are giving me is much more than that. They are making me part of their families. They're making me part of their existence. They're actually taking my characters seriously. So I think at that point I got more serious. And I said, okay, I think I need to choose my characters more carefully. And that's when Satya happened. And that's when I realized that there is much more to just going to a 9 to 5 job or a 9 to 9 shift, so to say. There is much more than just wanting to get back home. So I was this young teenager doing my job. So for me, I used to want my time back home. So I used to be the happiest person when they used to say pack up. And that was my teenage years. Those were my young days, where I was, waiting for the director to say, okay, Rani, your work for today is done. And I was like, okay, I need to go back home, But then times changed where I used to be wanting to be on a film set, longer than the required time that I've given, because I want to be part of the filmmaking process. I want to spend time with my director. I want to spend time with my technicians team. I want to know the process. So it's been a time where I've also evolved with my films. Like I've grown up in cinema. Like they could say that I'm their child. Like I've literally grown up with so many directors, so many technicians where they've seen me. You've seen me, young Rajeev. We were together on a flight where we were going for the Gulam premiere. And you've seen me when I was 18 years old. And now you see me now in my 40s. So you see, you've seen me evolve. So there are so many people who I've grown up with. I have learned so much from my seniors, from my colleagues. It's just been a learning process. And believe me when I say that, the learning never stops. It is a learning that we have to continue. We cannot confidently say that we know it all. Like how many ever number of films you do, how many ever, successes you have. But there is the nervousness, there is the excitement with each release, there is nervousness with each release. There is a sense of learning with each film, with each character, with each people who we meet new and we learn from. So it's an ongoing process.
Rani, I want to zoom out a little bit. while the last year was a good year for the Hindi film industry, there were films that did very well. I think it's fair to say, and I think most people would agree, that we've seen a lot of the films from the South perform exceptionally well. We've seen a lot of, and just some of the examples are, of course, Pushpa and Kantara and KGF, and filmmakers like Rajamouli and Atlee and Sandeep Vanga Reddy, they've got their finger on the pulse of the audience in a way that maybe a lot of the Hindi filmmakers, just the volume of Hindi filmmakers that used to have it, don't anymore. What do you think the South filmmakers and the South industry is getting right?
I think, like in most cases, I would not say all.
Sure.
They want to listen to still to what the audiences want. Somewhere down the line, maybe when there is so much evolvement in cinema, when cinema is evolving and everybody's trying to cater to a diverse kind of audience, sometimes you lose in touch with the popular, I would say, popular or the massive want of an audience to see simple storytelling, as opposed to storytelling which is more diverse or more evolved or more for a certain section of audiences. So I think maybe they are still very simple at heart, and they're probably connecting with the simple storytelling that the audiences want from the filmmakers, and that's what they're recognizing and they're doing. I have worked with a lot of South Indian filmmakers in my career, and I've learned a lot from them. The most fascinating part about the South industry is what I see is that there's a lot of unity. They stand together, they support each other. Like I see so many of these events where, directors are going for each other's, music opening or their films announcements, and they're standing together, and also actors, where they stand. And of course, it happens in our industry as well. But I think learning, as I say, the beautiful part is when you talk to them, they say that they've learned from us. And when you talk to us, we say we learned from them. And it's always a give and take, And what's beautiful here is that Indian cinema is learning and looking inwards now. In the middle, they should say that, oh, cinema is inspired from the West, or people are copying the West, or they're getting inspired by the West. Today, it's so nice that people are getting inspired by their own, because we have to make films that have to cater to our audience, and we have to listen to the voice of our audience. So it's wonderful that we are taking amazing feedback from one another. We are getting inspired by each other, and we are helping each other to be the best versions of ourselves.
Lovely. Rani, you're at this incredible vantage point where you're not just one of the top actresses in the industry, you're also married to one of the biggest studio bosses in the industry. That vantage point allows you to have this view of what are the challenges today involved in making films, where the entertainment and the film landscape is headed. Now, as someone who has that vantage point, as someone who has that perspective, what needs to change for the film business to thrive again?
So I'll give you a small anecdote, a little story. I think people will be, I don't know. So I'd say this during the pandemic time. So Adi had these couple of films that were to be released, the really big films, which were the commercial pot boilers, as we say, which started obviously in the pre-pandemic time. And obviously, unfortunately, when pandemic started, there was a question mark on all the films. And that's the time where I observed my husband closely, because there was no talk of films releasing. And of course, there is a business point of view where each film needs to release at a particular time for it to be able to sustain the cost that it has incurred for the film. And I remember Adi saying that, and there was a lot of pressure on filmmakers to release all these films on OTT. And a lot of filmmakers were doing that. Their biggest films were releasing on OTT. And I see my husband completely calm and composed. And he was like, with so much conviction. So I would use the word conviction that my husband had. And he said, you know what? These movies were made for theatrical, for the audiences at large to enjoy. And I would want to release these films theatrical, he was being offered a lot of money to release it
Yeah.
on OTT, you
Yeah.
know. And it was a complete business call where it would be a win-win situation for the OTT platform and for the producers, where he was making profit just releasing it on OTT. But there I see my husband taking this brave call and saying that no, I would not release any of these films on OTT because I believe in the power of Indian cinema, of what it does theatrically. And in time, when the films came, all of those films flopped.
Yeah.
Because post-pandemic, you know, the whole way audiences were watching
watching,
content
correct.
changed overnight
Yeah.
because of OTT. And the kind of content they saw globally, just everything changed. And all these films of his that failed at the box office, and he took a complete hit
Yeah.
commercially,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
none of the films did
Made
well.
money, yeah.
You know, and it was like complete like depression. People were sad in our company,
Yeah.
and that whole conviction that Adi stood with, that no, my movies will release theatrical. We thought that there would be some divine intervention and that he would be rewarded for his conviction of releasing films theatrically, and everything kind of didn't work for us. And then came Pathan. And Pathan changed the entire thing forward, Yash
Yeah.
Raj, and it became the highest grossing film. So, जब भगवान देता है फिर छप्पड़ फाड़ के देता है. He just tests you and sees that how much courage you have. And I think Adi had that courage, and I completely, as a colleague of his, I completely salute that. Because that I thought was commendable. So when you ask me what are the
What needs to change,
what
yeah.
needs to change is, I think filmmakers need to have more faith in the product that they make, and they should believe in what they make, and they should stand with each other to make that change, you know.
Yeah.
And today, Pathan stood the test of time, you know, and that just opened the floodgates for people going into cinemas,
Yeah.
you know. And today, again, the times are like we're talking like how we spoke in the pre-pandemic time,
Correct.
you know.
Yeah, we've gone back to the sort of, to some degree, to the glory days. Might be a bit optimistic, but
Normal days.
normal days.
Let's say
Okay.
the normal days.
Okay. Rani, you were only 18 when your first film came out. When you look at this Gen Z bunch of young actors, do you feel like they could take a page out of, you know, your generation's book, or do you feel like you wish you had their savvy?
So as I already told you about my start,
Yeah.
I was clueless.
I'm kind of certain that this generation's not much more clued in, even if they think so.
No, so I always feel that when we as youngsters come into the industry, we always look up to our seniors, or we look up to people who have had more experience than us, to basically learn from them. I'm sure this generation, some of them do want to take a leaf from what we did, but I think because cinema is always evolving, things are always evolving, the kind of filmmaking is like evolving, or the way films are made is evolving. Sometimes it gets difficult to actually take a leaf from anybody's career, because you have to shape your own career the way you deem fit.
Right.
You know? So I would say that things for them are much tougher today because they want instant gratification through social media. They are also always worried as to what will happen even after a conversation they would have in a public platform.
Yeah.
So everything is scrutinized much more, and everybody's on tenterhooks as to not make mistakes. And luckily for me, because I'm not on social media, I don't know what's going on. So I say whatever I have to say.
You know, that was going to be my last question. Social media is such an almost integral part of an actor's toolbox today. I mean, they use it to promote their films, promote themselves. It's also a revenue driver today. How do you resist the temptation to not be on Instagram?
Because I have a bunch of amazing fans of mine who keep promoting me all the time.
How lovely.
Whether or not I promote myself, they are constantly doing that for me. So I'm very lucky to have a great fan following and my dedicated fan groups who keep me alive through this generation as well and remind people who I am. I obviously don't do many advertisements.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm not there in the faces of people or on television all the time. So yes, my films kind of do that work for me.
Yeah.
Also because I like to keep a very simple life for myself. I just feel the more we get engaged in different things, we have to give it our best. That's the way
Yeah.
I am. And I would like to do things where I can give my 100%. Maybe for social media, I would not be able to give my 100%. So I don't want to take that extra burden, that extra load of what I need to do. So I feel the way it's going, it's great. The fact that people went to see my film, Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway, makes me happy that they still recognize me and they still know me and they still want to see my film, which is amazing. And I would continue to keep wanting to push the bar, keep wanting to push my boundaries as an actor, and it's always great to keep waiting for that one role or that one character to come by, which
Yeah.
inspires me and which will inspire generations to come. Yeah, so that's something that I keep waiting for.
Well, one expects nothing less than that from you. Rani
Thank you,
Mukherjee,
Raj.
thank you so much. Thank you for the movies, for some incredible performances over the years. I'm told time's up, but I really must say on behalf of the room that you've really inspired us, you've entertained us over the years, and you don't stop, and you shouldn't stop. Cannot wait to see what you do next.
Thank you, and thank you to all my audiences over the years who have actually given me so much feedback about my work, about my films. Though you all don't know how much it makes a difference in our lives, it does, because we do read it, we do understand, what you like, what you don't like, and for us, it's always a learning to know what we can do to better ourselves, to actually better our films, and to tell you frankly, everybody in our industry is working day and night to just get some kind of entertainment in everybody's life. So we are working really hard for that. And thank you for being our support through the years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rajeev sir. Thank you, Rani ma'am. And trust me, simplicity goes a long, long way, ma'am. Ma'am, एक सवाल है आपसे जो मैं पूछना चाहता हूँ, क्योंकि जब मैंने यहाँ फिकी फ्रेम्स की शुरुआत की थी, तो यश सर, जैसे आपने कहा, he's been such an inspiration for all of us and
Yes.
been part of this journey for FICCI frames. आदि सर कब आएंगे यहाँ स्टेज पे? उनको कैसे लाया जाए?
वो तो आपको उन्हीं से पूछना पड़ेगा.
मतलब मैं पीछे भी ये सवाल पूछने के लिए मुझे मना कर रहे थे, मैं बोला एक बार तो मैं मैम को पूछूंगा, क्योंकि बिग बॉस की जैसे आवाज सुनाई देती है, and he's such an entity, larger than life, and the man with the plan. So is it possible? आप रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे हमारी तरफ से?
No, I think वो actually 27 साल पहले I think वो बाहर आए थे. फिर 27 साल बाद वो रोमांटिक्स में बाहर आए. अभी वापस 27 साल बाद शायद वापस
कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं
अपना चेहरा दिखाने आएंगे.
ऐसा तो नहीं कि बाहर आपका इंतजार भी कर रहे हैं? But ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for Rani Mukherjee.
Thank you.